I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis of mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about Hoop Speak Live. This show has got an angle other shows don't seek. The #1 place for the basketball geek. Like puppy breath and cinnamon or Limburger cheese. Like juggling at a funeral with a case of the McGee's.
Welcome to HoopSpeak Live, the reboot. I'm your host, Beckley Mason. First, a couple notes. We are using Spreecast. As you can tell, that song is by Roger Bain, our own Anthony Bain's dad. Thank you very much for that. It's a demo. We're going to have some updates, but it's awesome. You can tweet to us individually. You can email us at hoopspeaklive@gmail.com. Best emails we'll read. You can click chat in the upper right-hand corner. Just doing some housekeeping here. Very excited about the reboot. And all right, let's bring on the co-hosts, Ethan Sherwood-Strauss and Zach Harper. Welcome back, guys. Excited to be here. Excited to be in our remote triumvirate of HoopSpeak Liveness. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. I love being in the triad and being back from our sabbatical. It's quite nice, you know. I haven't been doing all that much with my vacation because I bought a dog. But I did interview Rajon Rondo, you know, humble brag, and because we're supposed to contribute a story. I will say I was struck by how obviously I wasn't struck by it, but he had no idea who I was. So all these times where he's scoring a triple-double and I'm getting all these people on Twitter saying, Rajon Rondo really showed you. People, he has no idea who I am, and all these players that we have been out of shape about supporting or declaring under or overrated, they really don't care, so we should just all calm down about it and have fun arguing. But Zach, what were you doing during the sabbatical?
I moved to France for 5 days, and then I moved back.
This movie.
Yeah, it's some say it's a vacation. I think I moved. I visited the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, this awesome South African bar that's in the Latin Quarter, all kinds of stuff. Lots of walking around. Came back and got a physical at the doctor.
Oh.
And surprisingly, this is going to blow your mind. Perfect health.
Yeah?
Perfect blood pressure, cholesterol. Makes no sense at all because I'm a very unhealthy person. Maybe he's just a terrible doctor, but that's what I've been up to.
It's just, it goes with all the NBA preseason buzz. He's coming into the season, perfect health, lowest cholesterol in years. Going to be ready for that high blood pressure season.
Yep.
The testosterone through the roof.
Okay, so this isn't like what I do with my time when I'm not writing or thinking about basketball, but it's just a weird story that I had to share. I was walking in the West Village in New York City, and I was walking by like this very expensive restaurant. This is in the morning this is actually Saturday, and there's a man in a wheelchair who was crippled but looked like mentally with it, and it turned out that he had MS. And he's talking. He's got like a faint voice, and I think I'm like probably the only person in New York City who's like walking by himself quickly and is like, "Oh, excuse me, handicapped person. No, I'd like to hear more of what you have to say, and if I can help in any way." That's just not a very New York attitude. Still getting used to it. Moved up here in June. Anyway, turns out that he was looking for someone to help him get to his apartment, which I was more than happy to do. But we had to wait for his aide, a woman named Dee Dee, with a preposterous weave, who eventually showed up. She had been using the restroom in his apartment. So he comes. We walked together. This is going to make me sound like a pretty good person, because what ends up happening is I carried him, picked him up, and carried him into the house and then carried the wheelchair like up the flight of stairs too. But I should mention that the main reason that I was so available to help him was because I was going to the gym. So all I had on me was my keys. So I was like, oh, you know, if he's begging or something, I'm not going to get caught like having to feel really bad about giving him money or not giving him money, which is like something that still bothers me here. So anyway, I get him up there, and like as I'm carrying him, as I picked him up and I'm gonna help him get in there, I like almost drop him once, and he's like, "Well, don't worry, I've been dropped before." I was like, "Oh, that makes it feel much better." Anyway, I picked him up, and I say to myself, like, of course he can hear me, though his head is like right here. I say to myself, it's like a sack of potatoes. And end up getting him up there. He's very appreciative. We were talking. He's like very well read. He was reciting Wallace Stevens poetry. But I don't understand how he gets in and out there every single day. He must have money if he lives in like this is like a very nice part of the city. It was a very mysterious morning. I was like I just ended up going home instead of going to the gym and like going back to bed. I was like, I've accomplished enough for the rest of the weekend. I'm going to shut it down. That's my story for the season.
I put a lot of thought into this since you told me a few minutes ago that this happened. I think it's easy to get down because all he has to do is position himself on the handrail and he can slide down. Like, wouldn't that be the easiest way for him?
One arm, basically. Like, he's not positioning anything on anything.
I think he might be writing a book, and this is almost like Taxi Driver Confessions, but of the generous. He's taking a survey of the greater New York area and the people who are nice enough to carry him, and he's just writing about the various things they say and the impressions of them. And I think that's his plan right there. And I would read that coffee table book.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's like an awful situation for him, but he seemed pretty upbeat and like knew his neighbors. I don't know. It was just a really bizarre thing. He was just hanging out on the corner, like talking to people as they went by and hoping, I guess, that he would run into someone who could haul him up there. Anyway, the NBA is coming back in about 3.5 weeks, and we are going to have a little segment here where basically instead of doing multiple segments, we're going to do one big segment, which we are calling HoopSpeak Lines. And I'm going to put something in the chat so that everyone can follow along with the information that we're going to be going off of, which is right there. So you can click in the chat. There should be a link. And these are the lines on how many games teams are expected to win. And we are going to comment on those lines and if we think anything is wildly out of place. So, Ethan, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to start with my beloved / behated Warriors at 34.5. I believe that's an over, although emotionally it's very hard to invest in this product because it continues to disappoint. But if I'm sticking another name on this team and naming it the Golden State Blues, or I don't know, some sort of utterance, then I would definitely take the over just based on the roster. It is the kind of team that should win more regular season games than it would be a playoff threat were to get there because it's deep. They have Landry, they have Jack off the bench, and they have Bogut who can compensate for these deficiencies. It is an if healthy juggernaut, so I would go over on 34.5. And I would go under on the Lakers. I'm a bit of a Lakers skeptic, although I do think that it's going to be a better playoff team than a regular season team. When you go with teams that are superstar laden, but they have a weak bench, those tend to overperform in the postseason and underperform in the regular season. At 59.5, I mean, it's just tough to think that they're going to win over 60 games. It's a hard thing to do. That would be better than the Miami Heat in their 2010 year in a much weaker conference. So I would take the under on the Lakers.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on the Warriors. 34.5 was like shockingly low. I think that most people, I mean, I think it speaks to the general like national distrust of the Warriors because this is, the Vegas line, so they're built to bet around. They're not built to be exactly a predictive model. They're a reflection of public sentiment. And so in that way, I guess it's not that surprising that the Warriors are 34.5. But when you look at that team and the top 8 is, includes guys coming off the bench like Jared Jack, who's a super sub, Carl Landry, as you mentioned, is going to be really, an effective sub. Brandon Rush starts if he doesn't come off the bench, and Harrison Barnes. Richard Jefferson is like the ninth man, and that's even assuming that Biedrins can't contribute anything. It's like an athletic 4-5 sub.
By the way, I think Draymond Green will be good and contribute right away. Probably more so than Barnes. It's just they're deep.
Yeah, so I think you're right. They have a very deep team. Klay Thompson should be, lighting it up again this year. 34.5 seems ludicrously low. I'm interested what you think about the Lakers, because I go back and forth on this one. We haven't had a team in the last couple years that's done this, but 64 to 67 win teams, we've had those in the last 5 years a few times, and why not this team? They look like a juggernaut.
I think they'll win about 60 games, so the 59.5 is like dead on for what I would just think right off the cuff. I probably would go over, because you don't really have to be that good to win regular season games in terms of like, oh, can you win a title? I mean, we see teams that are built for the regular season all the time. Like the Hawks for the last 4 years are a regular season team that do really, really well, and then playoff time comes and they wet themselves. So I think the Lakers are just one of those teams that they'll be a good title team, but they're also like a team built for the regular season, because they can have 2 out of their 4 guys kill you every night, and it's probably good enough for a win. And they're going to be very good defensively regardless, because 1, Mike Brown knows how to coach defense, and 2, they have 3 good defensive players on the floor pretty much at all times.
Yeah, I'm worried about them just with injuries. I assume Howard is going to be mostly healthy, but they are old, and that bench is still just an absolute disaster. So, I think that we might be underestimating the time that it'll take them to integrate. It just depends. Like, if you believe Nash is going to just make it all work from the jump, then 59.5, I think, makes sense. I thought Vegas is right, or this lines that we linked to here is right, in that the Thunder are still supposed to win more in those lines. There is 60.5.
I hear a Beckley freeze. I can pick up the football from. Oh, Beckley is back. Beckley's back. Well, I'll continue. I will respond with some more thoughts on the skepticism. I think you brought up a very good point with health. It's an older team, and if they sustain injuries, it's a weak bench behind it. But also, for all the superstar talent, there's a lot of role overlap on the team. For instance, I think Pau is really a center, and he's going to have to play power forward again, and that isn't good against teams that have a stretch forward or an athletic four. And also, Kobe has ostensibly been their point guard year after year, and he's used to having the ball in his hands, as does Nash. So there's some role overlap in that case as well. And also, in terms of the Lakers, I feel a little bit like Rick Perry in the debates. I can't remember the third. I had a third point. And I can't remember the third right there, but maybe we'll come back to it, and you guys respond to whatever my mythical imaginary third point was there.
All right, Zach, why don't you give us your teams, and if Ethan, if you think of it, why don't you just bring it to the class's attention?
Ooh.
This seems like the surest thing. The absolute surest thing is Orleans.
Wait, hold on. Zach, we have to call on Ethan. I think he's remembered it.
Oh, I remembered it. Oh, we're very sold on them being good at defense, and I'm not sure that they will be. Last year, an injured Dwight Howard had the magic at a middling defensive figure. We talk about how Mike Brown is a very good defensive coach, but they were in the middle of the pack. I believe both were tied for 14th in defensive rank. And so we're not assured of that. I would bet in them being good at defense because of Dwight, and perhaps bet in him being healthy, but it's by no means a guarantee, and there's a strong possibility that they will be middling, especially with Nash coming in and Antoine Jameson coming in.
No, it's a guarantee they're going to be a very good defense. They have Dwight Howard coming in, and Mike Brown had like 8 days to put in his defensive schemes and philosophies last year without any practice time before the playoffs. They had maybe 7 practices the entire season. Like, this is a completely different setup than what we saw last year because they had no time to prepare with a new coach.
What if Dwight's mobility is compromised? And what if they suffer for having power forwards or athletic power forwards, stretch forwards?
Last year and was good at defending power forwards last year. He was and even stretch forwards like you worry about, he's very good at challenging spot up shooters.
All right, I think we've proven that they're going to be a very divisive team from the start and that we have no idea about anyone's health and we're all speculating. So let's just move on. I'm sure we'll talk about this team ad nauseum throughout the season.
Indeed.
All right. I'm going to give my team here. The easiest bet, the easiest way to win money is take the over on New Orleans at 26.5 wins. They won 24 games last year, and they're adding Anthony Davis, Eric Gordon for maybe 20 games, Austin Rivers. They don't have a point guard, which is a problem. Grievous Vasquez is not really an NBA player at all. But they're, I think, a deeper team than last year. They added Ryan Anderson. They can go really big with lineups, or they can go really small and be just fine. If Austin Rivers is decent as a rookie coming off the bench, if Eric Gordon can play half the season, they're going to win over 24.5 games. Though, I mean, that's probably worst case scenario, like a 29-30 win team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it makes me wonder if Vegas has some sort of secret information among the sharps, as they're called, that we don't know about, because I think I don't, off the top of my head, know what their prorated win total is in an 82-game season from last year, but it's over 30 games. They added Anthony Davis, as you said, and got Ryan Anderson. It doesn't make sense why they would be a notch worse, other than people have caught on to the fact that, or the possibility, the strong possibility that Austin Rivers is not good. So other than that, I'd see.
All right. I have one very important point that no one has mentioned about why this team might be awful, and that is because they gave $5 million to Robin Lopez and are going to start him and play him like 25, 30 minutes a night. He is so bad. He's so bad. Like, I love Monty Williams, and I think that they're in the right place with the players they have and stuff, but if they go with that big front court with Davis at the 3, Anderson at the 4, and Lopez at the 5, they're going to get steamrolled. Like, I think that Brett Cormanos was talking to me, and his theory is that they should bring Davis off the bench as a 4-5 super sub. But I have to say, Robin Lopez is miserable, and they don't have a lot of good players. Like, they have some nice young pieces, but this is potentially still a pretty bad team for, like, the first half of the year. I could see them starting and being, like, 10-30, and then finishing 20-20 down the stretch or something like that. Like, I feel like this team is going to take a while to be decent, but they should still exceed, as Zach said. I think they'll still exceed 26 wins.
Yeah, no, Robin Lopez is truly terrible, but Jason Smith is going to take those minutes anyway because Jason Smith is actually a decent basketball player. Like, they're not going to play Robin Lopez year-round.
All right, what's your other team?
Other team is, of course, the Timberwolves. I've been conservatively picking 40 wins for them, which I feel is conservative when you have people saying, oh, they might be a top 4 seed in the West. They're not going to be a top 4 seed in the West. They have too many questions, and they cannot – I mean, that team cannot defend anybody. That's going to be kind of a bad thing all year for them. But they are very talented. They go really deep now at every position. Even the big man depth isn't that bad as it looked a month ago. Peck is not suffering from bone spurs in his ankle anymore. He lost like 9 pounds. He's in incredible shape. He's moving really well. Some of that could have just been dead soldiers that had caught onto his back at some point. Not quite sure. But this team, if Rubio comes back healthy at all in late December, like relatively healthy and can give them 15 to 20 minutes, I think 40 wins is probably a worst case scenario. Now, guys can get injured, they can completely fall apart, and everyone dies. But I think them at 39.5, I think you can take the over and be pretty confident in that.
Yeah, I have questions about their backcourt. I don't know. I think their backcourt is a big issue until Rubio gets back. I like Ridnour, but I think on the wings, their ball. I don't know. I agree. I picked them to win like 45. I think probably even might have picked them to win one or two more than that, just because Love is so durable and produces so much, and they did round out the roster a little bit. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they just turn the ball over like crazy and still have problems on defense. I think they're asking a lot of Karolinko to carry that D, so we'll see.
This is sort of related to that, and granted, the superstar term can be a little bit vague, but do you think Kevin Love is a superstar? Do you think that being a superstar, one of the definitional qualities would be dragging a mediocre team to the playoffs? And if that doesn't happen this year with his surrounding roster, would that be kind of an indictment of him as superstar?
No, because that whole dragging a team to the playoffs by yourself is such a misguided thing. KG missed the playoffs in 2005. Was he not a superstar then? Kobe missed the playoffs in 2005. Like, sometimes your team around you just sucks. And the making the playoffs is kind of a thing like, oh, this guy should make the playoffs every year. But sometimes you just don't have the assets around you to do it. Now, this year they actually have talent, so yeah, they probably should make the playoffs or at least seriously contend for the playoffs. But if they don't make it, it doesn't mean he's any worse of a player than he is right now before the season.
Yeah, RBIs are like totally situational too. Exactly. Okay, I'm going to do mine. My first one, they have Philadelphia at 48.5 wins. 48.5 wins! That is ridiculous. I get, like, Bynum, I love him, he's good. But look at the rest of that team. Maybe if they just swapped Iggy and Bynum, I could, believe this, because then they'd have Elton Brand in the front court with him, and they'd still have their best shooters. But they basically, I don't know, I really don't like the Sixers. I think that Bynum and Collins are in for a really bad relationship. I think that Evan Turner is going to think that it's Turner time, and he's a bad player. And I would flip them with the team that they have. This line has at 43.5 wins, which is the Hawks. I think the Hawks are going to be above 500, and I think Philly is going to be below 500.
Yeah.
Below 500?
That's bold. I agree with the idea that
they lost their two best defensive players, and they're a defense-first team, so I don't see why they're going to be much better.
All sorts of things are going on. Zach Harper is the #1 Bynum hater out there, so it's funny that he reacted so strongly to the idea that they would win perhaps under 500. But yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement. And I don't get it, because in theory, there aren't a bunch of Sixers fans out there influencing the line. I know why the Hawks are so low. It's because nobody cares about them and nobody cares to bet on them. That part of it makes sense.
Kyle Korver rules.
They should be good, though. They should still be good. They're bringing back Al Horford and Josh Smith, and while it just infuriates me that they don't make one of those guys a power forward, and they keep playing two power forwards at once, they should be good for having Horford back. And I think that Joe Johnson, that's a loss. He dominated the ball so much that perhaps we'll get new value, and Jeff Teague could grow some skills. So. No, I like the Hawks a lot, and I'm confused. I'm just confused by the Sixers. Totally confused.
All right. First of all, I'm not a hater. I'm not a Bynum hater. I just recognize that he has two better players, giving him a lot of room to operate over the last couple of years. So that's why he's been so good, is because he's not the focus of the offense.
Not only are you a Bynum hater, you're a relentless straw manner of me as a Bynum lover.
He pees himself every time there's a double team, which I find to be a bit of a problem, especially if you're going to be the #1 option on a team.
I don't know why there's been so many peeing yourself references already. Zach, that's 2 for the show. He did turn the ball over on 25% of double teams. I think I saw that stat. Or did I make it up? Twitter will never know.
White has the same problem. You forgive him for some reason.
I don't think
the Sixers. White's a much better passer than him. Come on.
I don't think they'll be below 500, but a reason they aren't going to reach 47.5 wins, Doug Collins loses every team after a couple of years, and he's still the coach of that team.
I think we can all admit that that it's a gasoline fire combo with this Collins and Bynum, and that's a disaster that everybody kind of sees coming. And we don't usually
like lighting a cigarette at a gasoline fight.
Yeah. We don't usually base our judgments on whether or not teams will win or lose based on friction between coach and player, especially when the coach and player have no history whatsoever with each other. But in this case, I would say that it is fair. We're talking about somebody who's very detail-oriented and uptight with somebody who hilariously tries to make his own rules and assert his leverage in the wackiest ways possible. And yes, it's an oncoming disaster.
All right, we're gonna hop to. This was really fun. We're gonna hop to some audience questions. This one comes from Trissy. Vegas had Grizzlies winning 48 games and finishing 6th. Do you feel that is too low? I think the West is a bear. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be tough to win. I think it might.
They're tough.
This is a hard one because I think they're right in that range. I mean, unless you think Rudy Gay is going to take a big step forward and Zach Randolph is going to return to form, I don't see them as more than 50 games. Do you guys?
I think that's the problem. There's no reason to see improvement. Everybody on that roster is about as good as they're going to get, and some of them might even decline. Zach Randolph, that's someone to watch out for as far as a decline goes. So, yeah, I think that's pegged about right, and I might go a little bit under, actually.
I disagree on the Grizzlies because 2 years ago they didn't have Rudy Gay healthy in the regular season. Last year they didn't have Zach Randolph. Now you can say maybe this team isn't a healthy team, but if they are, 48 wins is probably way too low.
Interesting. Yeah, they're not going to have Mayo off the bench. Well, Jared Bayless, Mayo. Okay, I thought you liked Mayo. Okay, I thought I was bringing this up in order to pin you on Mayo. I thought you liked him. Dang it.
No, I've watched him play basketball.
All right. Big tough guy. Well, here's a question. Here's a question specifically for you, Zach. What odds will you give Wages to Wins Dre on the Wolves as a top 4 seed? So I assume Dre is saying he thinks they will be a top 4 seed.
Are they going to finish higher than either the Thunder, Lakers, Spurs, or Nuggets? No. So you can have whatever odds you want. Like they're going to be they can be really good, but they're not going to be better than those 4 teams.
Do you think that your team is maybe, because people love them, that they're overrating them a bit? Do you think a little bit of that might be happening?
Yeah. Like I don't think people realize how tricky the whole Rubio situation is going to be. I mean, that's going to be a really hard thing to integrate him back in because you don't know how he's going to be defensively.
Also, we don't quite know if he's that good. That's another Rubio issue that I think.
He's in the theme song. We have to embrace him. He's in the theme song.
He's an excellent passer, but the other qualities are a little bit.
Which matters. I know you don't believe in point guard defense, but they fell apart after he went down last year.
He may well be the key to that defense. I don't know if I believe that, and I think that might be a small sample size. But yes, it could be so.
40 games is plenty of a sample size when in the history of the NBA. No one's ever over or underestimated a guy off 40 games.
Oh, by the way, something we didn't talk about with Golden State is that Anthony Randolph is also playing for them. And this is like a little nerve that we're kind of staying off in order to be nice to Ethan. But I cannot wait for Randolph to come out and play 15 good minutes and for Ethan to just be like in full heat for Anthony Randolph basketball with the Golden State Warriors.
Anthony Randolph could be...
Oh, wait, he's on the Nugs. My bad. Shoot.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yeah, he's on the Nuggets. The other fun team. Sorry, I knew it was a team that would potentially be awesome for him, and Ethan would then fall in love with him. Thank you for the corrections in the chat.
Look, I think that he could become good for a guy whose name is tattooed on himself. I think for somebody who tattoos his own name on himself, he could be good for that, with that qualifier.
Well, how do you feel about Rajon Rondo's giant RR tattoo on his back? Just a big fan of alliteration and labeling.
I think that's more acceptable if you and look, I'm not the arbiter of tattoos. Obviously, I don't have them. I have a very low threshold for pain. But I think that it's more acceptable if you get the initials than your actual name. Because what is your actual name? It almost seems like this is Memento, and you just woke up and you're trying to remember who you are. So I think that's fine. Yeah, maybe I'll go for Arbiter of Tattoos next year. Not yet, though. HoopSpeak Live moderator.
All right, we are at the 30-minute mark. If you do not know, this show this year will be a 30-minute show 2 times a week. But this week we are doing it every single day. Our guest tomorrow. Let me get this out. Is Lee Jenkins from SI, who has been on the show a few times and is really, really fascinating to talk to. Great insight on personalities around the league. 30-minute show, Tuesdays and Thursdays, but this week, all week, Sweeps Week, HoopSpeak Live. Let's get to Dagger Smash Noted, and then you guys will get to hear that theme song one more time before we go out. My dagger is for the Celtics on 3-point attempts. They were towards the bottom of the league last year in corner threes and in 3-point attempts generally. I think that something that we don't talk about because we think of them as such a good shooting team is that they can make a big step forward in their offense if they get guys like Courtney Lee, Jason Terry, Paul Pierce is going to shoot threes, even Rondo shooting a couple threes a game. They can get up into that top 10 in threes per game. I bet you'll see their offense rise precipitously as well.
Yeah, my smash isn't going to be basketball related. Just putting that out there. Is there anything more uncomfortable when you're talking to a friendly stranger who happens to be a conspiracy theorist? Isn't that the most uncomfortable conversation? I had this happen to me yesterday at the sports bar. I was trying to watch a little bit of football, which I'm morally opposed to, but I still watch because I'm a hypocrite. And this guy is just going on and on. Friendly guy about, I need to see this documentary. He explains it all, man, and 9/11 was da-da-da. They're just trying to control our minds. And the whole time, you have to kind of tacitly agree with them because you want to be friendly and dance the dance. But you don't want to actually agree with them because that's crazy. So the whole time, you're just trying to watch it. You're like, yeah, it's just a crazy world. It's a crazy world, man. Oh, yeah, it's a difficult situation. I want to just see if other people have had that misfortune.
This is like going to be the story when Ethan is married. He's going to be like, it was going along, and I didn't want to be just kind of dancing the dance and being nice. And yeah, it's a crazy world.
It wouldn't be a HoopSpeak Live if I didn't hijack the show real quick. I have 2 noted. One, this just hit me. Celtics fans seem to hate the fact that LeBron has chosen one tattooed on himself, but Paul Pierce has chosen one on his back. So that doesn't really add up to me. And 2, I feel like I'm living in the dark ages now. Our refrigerator went out 2 days ago. It no longer is cold, and it is a really awful feeling. It's like the dark ages because I still have the internet, but the refrigerator does no longer cool food, which is an awful feeling, and I really feel
dark ages.
I'm one step away from being homeless.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who watched. Special thanks to James Herbert, who did a lot of work leading up to the show to get it ready. And special thanks also to Roger Bain. Take us out.
Bain.
HoopSpeak Lines.
I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis of mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live. This show has got an angle other shows don't seek. The #1 place for the basketball geek. Like puppy breath and cinnamon cheddar cheese, like juggling at a funeral with a case of the McGee's.